The first contest of the new year arrives. Temperatures this week in Iowa fall near zero as voters caucus. The campaigns making their last moves.
You're
our
so
own people
desperate.
first. We
You're
have
just
to put
so desperate.
You can take the ambassador out of the United Nations, but you can't take the United Nations out of the ambassador.
Then it's one of the last chances for Republicans to pick someone besides the former president, who's on a clear path to renomination.
We're going to drill, baby, drill. After that, I'm not going to be a dictator.
We preview the stakes there, and then look locally. The high-profile state Senate race in Dallas.
These are real issues. He doesn't understand the urgency.
A last-minute challenger aims to unseat a Democrat incumbent.
Quite to the contrary, I've delivered for this district far more than she has.
Hear from the two candidates and much more right now on Lone Star Politics.
This is Lone Star Politics from NBC5 and the Dallas Morning News.
Thanks for joining us this morning. I'm Phil Prazan from NBC5.
And I'm Gromer Jeffers, political writer with the Dallas Morning News. We start this morning with the Iowa caucuses, now just hours away, and the big, tough Nebraskan that he is, Phil, will be out there in the cold covering those caucuses.
I thought I left that place, the Midwest, near 0 degrees. Can you imagine that? Well, there's one less candidate in the Iowa caucuses. Former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie dropped out of the race, saying there are things more important than his own ambition.
I am going to make sure that in no way do I enable Donald Trump to ever be president of the United States again.
Now, there are 5 Republicans left. Former President Trump with a huge lead. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, Ambassador Nikki Haley, businessman Vivek Ramaswamy, and former Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson.
Yeah, Phil, the vote tomorrow will really be to find out who's in second place. NBC News senior national correspondent Steve Kornacki is at the big board to break it all down.
Ron DeSantis, let's start with this. We asked in our poll, do you have a favorable or unfavorable view of the candidates? This is Iowa Republicans. And I think one thing that jumps out is DeSantis is very popular, well liked by Iowa Republicans, more than Haley. Not quite as much as Trump, but more than Haley. The problem for DeSantis has been voters like him, Republican voters like him, but they like Donald Trump more. And DeSantis's message, especially on a lot of these cultural issues that he's stressed, he's been going after voters who like Donald Trump. He's been trying to peel them off, but they just seem to prefer Donald Trump more. That's what the polling is telling us. Take a look at this. We asked folks who are supporting Donald Trump in Iowa, who would your second choice be? Look at that. By a whopping margin, it's Ron DeSantis. So DeSantis's problem is he's got voters who like him, who are with him on the issues, but he's not managed to convince many of those voters that they should vote for him when Donald Trump is on the ballot, too. Haley, the problem is more this. Look, this is independent voters in our Iowa poll, and you can see Trump is winning among them, but he's not doing nearly as well with independents as he is with other voters. Meanwhile, you see Haley, she's doing over 20% with independent voters. That's her strength. Her strength is independent voters, and it's Republicans who don't necessarily like Trump, but there aren't a lot of those Republicans.
And Wednesday night, there was one final debate before the caucuses. The leading man, former President Trump, was invited, but again, it didn't show, instead having a forum on the friendly Fox News. The next two candidates, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and former Ambassador Nikki Haley, did face off on CNN.
We don't need another mealy-mouthed politician who just tells you what she thinks you want to hear just to try to get your vote, then to get in office and to do her donors' bidding.
That he's only mad about the donors because the donors used to be with him, but they're no longer with him now. And that's because he's upset about the fact that his campaign is exploding.
And Haley has recently seen an uptick in her support. With a second-place finish in Iowa, she may make history in New Hampshire, where she's cutting into Trump's lead. And that's where this race may get interesting. If elected, Nikki Haley would be the first woman president. But she's not overtly campaigning on that. To understand more, we're bringing in an expert. NBC News' Ali Vitale has been on the campaign trail and after the 2020 election wrote Electable, Why America Hasn't Put a Woman in the White House Yet. You're in Iowa watching these candidates. With Trump with such a lead, are any of these candidates directly attacking him? I saw, Chris Christie was, but he dropped out a few days ago. Are they kind of afraid to criticize the front runner?
The reality of this race has always been that to win, you have to go through Trump, but you can't alienate Trump voters in the process. It's made it a really delicate dance for everybody who's not named Trump, who's in this field right now. For someone like Nikki Haley and another one, Ron DeSantis, when Chris Christie dropped out of this race, he sort of tried to push the door wide open to say, hey guys, you gotta criticize the front runner if you want to win. Of course, for Christie, it's easier because his entire candidacy hinged on the idea that he was willing to say that he thought Trump was unfit for office. The rest of his rivals in this race, though, that's not their strategy, it's not their calculation. What could make them the Trump alternative is winning a state and beating Trump, because then there goes his veil of inevitability. That's not going to happen here in Iowa, but that is Nikki Haley's hope in New Hampshire. With Chris Christie out of the race, one less person to take votes from Haley, they think that could make the difference, and she's already surging there.
What's interesting to me about Nikki Haley's candidacy is, if elected, she would be the first woman president, but she doesn't seem to really be talking about that much, or at least from what I'm seeing. You wrote a whole book on this, Electable, Why America Hasn't Put a Woman in the White House Yet. What's going on there?
That subtitle is still true, but Nikki Haley is trying to make it that this book is at least a part of history and obsolete from an active politics perspective. Whether or not she gets there, Phil, of course, largely hinges and only hinges on this primary. But she's talking about gender and the way that she's running as a woman in a really fascinating way, especially for a Republican. When I wrote Electable, it was from the perspective of a field of 4 Democratic women all running, the most women we'd ever seen running concurrently in the same primary. On the Republican side, the realities of talking about gender, race, identity overall, the base really hates that. Grassroots voters are turned off by Republican and conservative candidates who talk about their metrics for viability and success through the lens of who they are and what they appear as. For Nikki Haley, she's really doing something fascinating where she'll make references to the fact that she is a woman who broke barriers as the first female governor of South Carolina, for example. She'll make references to kicking back and attacking her opponents, but in heels. But she's not using it as a selling point, saying, hey, elect me because I'm female. It's this really delicate dance that she has to do. Think about it this way, too. When her opponents attack her, and all of them have turned their sights on Nikki Haley at this point, she regularly refers to them as the fellas. It's a clear sign of her saying, I'm the only one who's not male in this race. All of the men are ganging up on me. She's referencing, without obliquely saying it, that there are gendered overtones and undertones to some of these attacks. She can't say that overtly, but she's referencing it to anyone who might be listening. It's the, again, delicate dance that she has to do without saying, hey, I'm the only woman running. She's saying, hey, I know you can see I'm the only woman running.
Allie, thanks for doing this. I'll see you in the freezing cold of Iowa here in a little bit.
Absolutely. Yeah, bring your earmuffs, my friend. It is cold.
So what is a caucus versus a primary, which is what we have here in Texas? It involves going to a polling place and privately casting your ballot. That's a primary. A caucus can vary from state to state, but the main difference is that it's held in a group setting. Voters hear from candidates or their representatives before deciding who to support in the race. Iowa usually holds the first in the nation caucus, followed by New Hampshire.
This time around, politics and weather will collide. Just in time for the Iowa caucuses, snow is piling up as temperatures plummet.
NBC5's chief meteorologist Rick Mitchell is here. Gromer, you know, Rick and I, we're both from the same hometown of Omaha, Nebraska.
It's Cornhusker Day on Lone Star Politics.
2/3, the other Chicagoan.
Guys, I'm happy that I'm not going to Iowa tomorrow for the political shenanigans that will be going on, because it is going to be brutally cold. The low temperatures tonight in Des Moines will be 17 degrees below zero. The high temperature tomorrow will be 4 degrees below zero. So this is brutal cold that will overspread much of the nation. You know, DFW tomorrow will be about 26. So, Gromer, I'm looking like the fact that you and I are staying here, we won this round. Phil gets to go have the fun up in the bitter cold.
I think so, Rick.
So, and growing up in Omaha, it's right on the border between Nebraska and Iowa. So all these TV commercials that are on 24/7. I grew up in that environment.
I know. You know, I still say one of the best steaks I've ever had. Nebraska, right on
Omaha Steaks.
It's one of the border cities between Iowa and Nebraska.
All right, and speaking of weather, it's probably a good time to download the NBC DFW app to stay up to date on that weather. You can also keep track of our work in the next few days in Iowa with that.
Yeah, it's going to be fun, Phil.
Still ahead, the big North Texas primary fight on the Democratic side. 2 North Texas lawmakers want your vote on March 5th. Campaign trail back in Texas now. 2 prominent North Texas Democrats want the same seat. State Representative Victoria Niave Criado says she is ready to move from the Texas House to the Texas Senate.
She's challenging the incumbent state senator Nathan Johnson for the District 16 seat. It stretches across Dallas County and includes Irving, Richardson, and Mesquite. We sat down with both candidates. So you are running in the Democratic primary for state Senate against a Democratic Party incumbent. Why?
That's right. It's time for change. Listen, the fact that we have Governor Abbott terrorizing families, mixed status families, Dan Patrick is terrorizing women who are having to leave the state in order to, get access to reproductive health care. That's not acceptable. And the fact that we have Nathan Johnson, the incumbent, who has stabbed this community in the back multiple times through his votes. For example, right now, the Uvalde families would come every single week to lobby to raise the age to purchase an assault rifle to 21. Nathan Johnson voted with Republicans to block that amendment from even getting a vote. That's not the type of leadership that we want when we have mass shootings. We Democrats, I as chair of MALC, made that a legislative priority to raise the age, and we fought for that. I was leading the charge in the House on fighting back against Governor Abbott's racial profiling bill. Nathan Johnson voted for one of his Governor Abbott's bills that puts 10 years mandatory jail time if you're caught driving somebody who is undocumented. That's not acceptable.
The racial profiling bill that you said that we're talking about in the 3rd special session, that was Senate Bill 4.
Yes.
And so that upped the penalty for human smuggling, right? That's what we're talking
10
about.
years, yes. That's the 3rd call special session. Civil rights group talked about how that's going to impact and that's going to result in racial profiling, mass incarceration for people of color.
Wasn't that law already on the books, though, and they just upped the sentencing?
They increased the penalty. It was a Governor Abbott priority. I fought hard. I led the charge to try to kill that bill during the regular session and special session, and it came back. And that's the stark difference between us. We should be fighting when people of color are going to be disproportionately impacted. This district is over 70% people of color. It has a population of residents that speak, over 50% speak a language other than English at home. I understand the needs of this community. That's why I'm fighting back.
Senator West and Senator Menendez, other Democratic senators, also voted for that bill, right? Do you have the same criticism of them?
My criticism is of Nathan Johnson. Our House colleagues, we stood up to fight against that bill and others. And here's the deal. There are other votes as well. The raising the age to purchase an assault rifle. Nathan Johnson also voted when I'm over here voting with, and on a bipartisan way, we voted to impeach Ken Paxton. Nathan Johnson let him off the hook on 2 charges. Like, what are you doing if we elect you in office? The residents of this district, there are so many issues. It's life and death on certain circumstances on certain issues, and we have to fight with everything that we have. And so that's why I'm running.
It's a majority Latino district, correct?
It's 49.3% and over 70% people of color.
Is it important, in your view, that a Latino leads that district?
I think that we need a reflective democracy, and it really, the type of, we have representatives who, it doesn't matter what color, if you're standing up for our community is one thing, and if you're not, then it's time to go. And that's the difference between Nathan and us. If he would have voted the right way, but he's not, and that's why it's time for change.
There's a key difference between how the House is made up and how the Senate is made up. You're a chair of county affairs in the Texas House. You have some power. In the Senate, the Democrats are pretty much sidelined. I mean, don't you have more power now than going into the Senate?
I don't need a chairmanship in order to get things done, and it's about fighting back. We work across the aisle on many issues to try to come up with solutions to help our community, but there are some times that we need to fight back, and chairmanship doesn't determine whether we fight back or not. And so, but I appreciate and I'm honored. I also lead a caucus in the House as chair of the Mexican American Legislative Caucus, so I'm constantly leading the fights, running floor strategy, using amendments in order to fight back.
Senator Johnson, thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Glad to be here.
All right. So you have an opponent this primary season. Why should voters pick you, the incumbent? Why should they return you to office?
I think if the voters look at who's delivered for the district, it is pretty clear. I know that the people of this district need health care, they need economic opportunity, they need electricity. Those are three areas that I have delivered. My opponent really hasn't done anything in these kind of fundamental areas that people need. Let's take a look at health care, for example. I've been the lead in this state on Medicaid expansion. We took it from a footnote that no one was talking about to the front page of every paper in the state. Leadership still won't move on Medicaid expansion, so I found another way. And last 2 sessions ago, we passed a law that we estimate got 200,000 uninsured low-income people, like those who live in my district, health insurance. You know, Dallas County has the highest rate of uninsured people in this whole state. My constituents need health insurance. We've delivered on that front. When it comes to economic opportunity, last session we managed to get into a big tax bill, the first ever in history tax incentive to bring good high-paying jobs to areas that have been overlooked, like areas in Senate District 16.
Your opponent is Representative Victoria Neave Criado. Her biggest criticism of you, she says that you don't fight hard enough against the agenda of Governor Greg Abbott and Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, who is president of the Senate. She has specific examples, most notably SB 4, the bill for human smuggling.
Yeah, I think that what's been said by my opponent and others is just kind of an irresponsible misrepresentation of what actually is going on. There were 2 SB 4s that dealt with immigration. One of them had to do with basically a racial profiling Governor Abbott bad border bill that I voted against multiple times, that I spoke against on the floor. The other SB 4 was this human trafficking bill, and it's very important to note that that bill didn't create a new crime. It created no new basis on which to incarcerate or arrest anybody. That bill's been on the books for 24 years. What it did is increase the penalties for convicted smugglers of human beings, and I voted with the Senate Hispanic Caucus in response to a negotiation that we had to lower the penalties that were proposed in that bill. And thank goodness we did, because they couldn't kill it in the House. That's effective legislation where I stand with my Hispanic Senate colleagues, and I would do so again.
It did split the Democratic Party in the Senate. The majority of the Democrats did vote for it, but a couple did vote against it. How did you come down on that decision?
Well, I respect my colleagues in all of their votes, and we don't always agree on all things. A lot of this comes down to tactics. I want to say something else about that bill. It did not create a new basis. If it's a racial profiling bill, if it were a racial profiling bill, I want to know why my opponent hasn't said a word about it for the 8 years she's been in office. Never filed a bill, never filed an amendment. If this is really causing a problem, why is it that one person in the last 7 years has ever been arrested under the law that it affected? I think this is politics.
What is your philosophy in terms of dealing with and moving forward your agenda with Lieutenant Governor Patrick, arguably one of the most powerful forces in Texas legislative politics?
I can't tell you how much I appreciate that question, Gromer, because it gets to the very heart of what it means to be an effective legislator. It's not a scorecard. It's strategy. It's figuring out where you can get things done, how you can advance something, even if it's going to fail. Sometimes you got to look out 2, 4, 6 years ahead. That's why I file a lot of bills that don't go anywhere, but I also file a lot of bills that I know I can get somewhere. Where is it that they might need some help that I can bring my angle in and pass it? Or where is it that generally they're going to get beat up in elections if they don't go with me? Or where is it that they're unable to do the work that they know I can do? So a lot of my power and influence in that chamber has come, for example, when you get down to the grid, I did the homework, and they know it.
Some voters in Dallas want Mayor Eric Johnson gone. Why and who is behind it? Next on Lone Star Politics.
We've heard no response yet from Dallas Mayor Eric Johnson on this issue, but he's facing an effort to recall him from City Hall.
Activist Devontae Peters is behind the recall effort. He claims Mayor Johnson failed voters, citing in part the mayor's recent political party switch from Democrat to Republican and how he's missed some city council meetings. SMU political science professor Cal Gilson agrees Johnson's party change is a bit mysterious.
It's a nonpartisan office. Why would you change and make an announcement about it and then start a Republican mayor's group that had not previously existed.
But he's really using the voters, he's using the taxpayers and the city to aggrandize himself for a further position when he leaves office.
An online resignation petition so far has about 2,000 signatures. Now that's far away from the 103,000, the number needed for a recall. And so I'm off to Iowa.
Yeah, it'll be interesting first to see if Trump is as strong as we think he is in the polls. If he has a runaway win, we'll know. But the battle for number 2, that's where it's at.
If I survive the cold, I'll be back with
Good
you
luck,
next
man.
week.
Good luck, partner.
That's all the time we have. Stay tuned for Meet the Press with Kristen Welker. Stay warm, and we'll see you